Welcome to the Gain Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from senior leaders in hospitality, travel, food service, and technology. Our co host today is Brendan Grazier, coming all the way from Australia, Sydney, Australia. How are you, Brandon?
Good morning. I'm
Good
great.
morning. Yeah. And our guest today is Will Gilbert, co founder of Bodhi. Will, how are you?
Doing great, thank you. Here in sunny South Florida.
Yeah. So we have two North Americans, one Aussie here. Will, before we go back to the beginning of your career and how you came about Bodhi, could you just give us the elevator pitch on what your company does?
Sure. What we really do is we protect the asset for the hotel, which is their guests, right? So by connecting into all the different devices around the property and the guest room and common area spaces and acting as a virtual technician throughout the entire property, constantly testing these different systems and virtually pressing buttons and seeing how things are responding. We're ensuring, we say 100% guest satisfaction. What does it cost to move a guest from one room to another? And especially a negative review is not good. So, we're utilizing our technology to talk to all these systems and be able to provide information to the property so that guest has a great 5-star experience.
Okay, so just for people, just backing up a little bit, are you talking about the physical systems, the low voltage systems in the room, or are you just a virtual platform that then is tied into the Bluetooth network or Wi-Fi?
Physical systems. So,
Yeah.
and also software systems. So, the physical lighting control, the HVAC, the music systems, we're physically integrated with all of those pieces of hardware. We're 100% hardware agnostic. And then we also can do things to ensure, a guest service request, a do not disturb or privacy request actually is working. And those two systems are talking to each other because, as you know, everything is fragmented and they have to talk to each other. So we're the ones that sit there behind the scenes, making sure all that stuff is actually happening.
Awesome. And this is very important because this is a whole evolution of hospitality, which is not just protecting the guests, as you said, but also energy management systems as well.
Yeah, it is. We're always being asked about that return on investment, and everyone can provide 35-45% savings because of a smart thermostat and talking to the PMS and rolling things back, and if the guest isn't in the room and occupancy and all that kind of stuff. We do all of that, 100% of that, but we just take it further by talking to all these different devices. And providing a greater ROI, which is not having that negative review.
Awesome. So now, let's pull it back to where how you got here. And I don't imagine any kid in middle school grows up or says, "When I grow up, I want to be the founder of a guest experience, in-room technology and physical low voltage system supplier and provider." How what were the broad strokes that led you from, your early career to founding Bodhi?
Ah, we can talk about this for a while, but I mean, yeah, I did start it at 14. But growing up when I was 6, 7 years old, I became really intrigued with this Texas Instruments programming tape recorder that I inherited, and being able to connect it to a TV and do basic programming, I mean, basic the programming language. And I was lucky enough to have parents that invested in computers for me growing up, and was absolutely fascinated with them. I go to the when I was 6, 7, again 6, 7 years old, going to the library to get books to go come home and type programs and learning every aspect about how this stuff kind of worked. That's what really started. And then coming into I was 11 years old, 12 years old. I started off with one of my, I guess, technically like a company. It was a bulletin board service, and that was back in people would dial in, and people could connect over the phone line, interact with the text-based screen to send messages to each other, to download software. My bulletin board service became extremely popular because I had all sorts of software and things people could download. And for my 12th birthday, my parents gifted me a second phone line, so I became one of the first dual line BBSs, and that's actually how I met one of my first partners to this day. He was one of the 3,000 users that I had. And he was just a couple grades older than in high school. So yeah, so fast forward, back to that 14-year-old side. That's where I really started working for an internet provider, and I didn't really look at it as a job. I'd go to that office after going to school during the day, and they have a list of customers for me to talk to, and they want to talk to me because they wanted me to come out and configure things and help them with software services and provide them a great experience. That's actually how I met my third partner. I was hired by his dad to go write software for his company, and so for me, I never really looked at it as working for people. These people wanted services and solutions I could provide. Again, customer experience, and I didn't want anything to be between me and the customer. So, the only way to ensure that was to have a direct connection to them with my own businesses, and that just parlayed into different businesses over the years, and getting into the ultimately the hospitality business from everything we learned the past 20 years in system integrations.
Okay, so the next part of this is that you've founded companies in 3 different countries. Is that correct?
Correct.
How has that changed your perspective on the nature of business?
Um, it's actually more countries now, but as far as operating on a global scale, the largest issues obviously to navigate are government regulations, employment restrictions. One of the reasons that we were highly successful in our systems integration business is because we always had local people to provide instant support. This would push out companies, from the market that were having to fly people in to provide that support. And again, this goes back to hospitality. The customer needs instantaneous response, and so that was, one of the things that we learned on that global scale of you have to be there. You can't just have an office. You need to have people there. Need to be servicing customers.
Okay, so now let's go forward to Bodhi and getting to the founding of Bodhi. And of course, everyone likes to talk about the founder's myth and this whole idea of the aha moment. But the other part of that is everyone has these great ideas, but then how do you know that they're actually the idea of many? So, what was your aha moment for Bodhi? And when did you know that it was an actual business, not just something that you forget about the next week?
So, coming from that systems integration world, we were always starting a new project, making different devices talk to one another, modifying programs and modules over and over again. No matter what, new projects were always a custom program, custom integrations, and there was no real way to manage all these devices. And we had a project in 2010. That's actually where Bodhi really started. Was back in 2010. The company didn't start till 2020, but the software, I look at Bodhi today, we're on our probably fifth generation, right? Basically based upon coming from 2010. And we had a really high-end mixed-use condo hotel that had all these sorts of different systems in it. And we really saw the need, for that single pane of glass to manage everything, and that's what we started building. There was nothing commercially available to tie it all together for a property manager, and again, to ensure that five-star guest experience. So these customers were flying in, spending tens of thousands of dollars a night, and they couldn't show up to units that weren't working. That's where Bodhi was born.
Okay, so we're at present day now, and we're talking really about a connected room. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that term's been used for a long time now. But yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Give us a visual. What can you connect into a connected room?
Really anything. Now, obviously, if you go into a room and it has regular, dumb light switches and a dumb thermostat, you're not going to get much from that, right? But you can connect every aspect, meaning from the second you open that door, that lock mechanism, being online, talking back to the system, to walking into the room and being picked up by an occupancy sensor or a thermal sensor, turning the lights on and off, something motorized window treatments. No one a crank in their car to put the windows up and down. They press a button for those shades to go open and close, or windows to go up and down. So the motorization of the window treatments, and then in the more higher end, you could have audio video systems as well. Of course, you always have the in-room entertainment with the television. So every aspect in that room is connected or can be connected.
One area that I really like is circadian lighting. Yeah. And I'm wondering if we could pick out this thread here. One aspect of Bodhi is you have preferred partners that you're going to work with that integrate into your system. Walk me through. I'm a prospective hotel owner and I want to do circadian lighting because I'm big on sleep. What would be your thought process in guiding that execution upon that dream and that demand?
Okay, perfect. Well, To start, obviously, we're 100% manufacturer agnostic.
Yeah.
And but what we do is this is a pretty detailed point, but we have customers coming to us asking, "Who should we use? What should we use?" And we always ask them, "Well, what are you trying to deliver?" So if someone were to come and say, "We want to deliver, a circadian rhythm experience in the guest room," we would say, "Okay, well, these different manufacturers have that technology and that capability. So, like a Crestron or a Lutron have that built right into their control systems. So what Bodhi can do is it can connect to it, so you can actually see and get data and analytics from all those kind of things. But those, circadian rhythm is really based upon time of day, outdoor daylight, all that kind of stuff. That's built directly into the control system. So we would, navigate that and inform them of what hardware selection to use, and then Bodhi is used on top to make sure all of it's working.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a very specific use case, but I like how you walk me through it, and it's like it's all about how you start from the guest and what the guest wants, and then go back to having the hardware and the connected software fulfill that guest experience.
Yeah. Or turn it off. Maybe one guest wants that in that room that day, and someone else doesn't want any of that stuff. And being able to easily turn it off. And that's something actually Bodhi does really well, especially in condo hotels. During the year when it's a hotel, all the regulations, all the code compliance aspects function. When the room is now being used, or the condo is being used as a tenant occupied space for half the year, all of those things get turned off. So we're able to give the best of both worlds by talking to all these systems.
And talking to all the systems, that comes down to the dreaded I word of integrations. And that's a whole nightmare, both choosing who you want to integrate with and then actually doing the development work. How do you balance that?
So the one thing when I meet with different manufacturers and newer ones that we've integrated with is we always explain to them that, because they'll ask me, why do we be on your platform? What's the benefit? Well, I say, well, the more you can expose to us in your hardware. And I've used this example before, but say you manufacture motorized window treatments. If you can give us information from that motor, if there's a a reverse torque sensor, a voltage drop, or something like extra details where we can use that data to be able to do more in-depth testing, and again, more than just offline, online.
Yep.
Then with that data, we can do so many more things. And so, we go to those manufacturers. We don't use any hacky APIs. Everything that we use is all published. We do all the integrations. Internally, so we don't outsource anything. We're constantly watching as the manufacturers change software versions and revisions and stuff like that. And we have an in-house lab here. We literally have a room that has every manufacturer's piece of equipment that we're able to test against all the time. So when something happens, a PMS software version might upgrade, and that disconnects something here and there, and we're able to be able to connect that, tell that property that, hey, this is down. We fix things within minutes. So we only do that by the integrations that we have, and by having those peer integrations where we're not doing anything behind the scenes. All the manufacturers know how we talk to their stuff. Some manufacturers give us some extra insight, like I was mentioning, into their equipment.
Oh, that's cool. Do you want to flip the camera around to show us the lab?
It's in the other room, but
Yeah.
happy to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, looking back at the guest experience, I mentioned one specific want or demand around the circadian lighting, but you mentioned another one, which is this whole condo hotel and how you can switch between them. And really, what we're seeing is technology companies like Bodhi enabling new types of hospitality and mixed use cases spaces. Are there any other ones that you see as trends that are emerging that you're helping fulfill?
Yeah. And I stole this, phrase from somebody else, but hospitality isn't spelled HOTEL. Hospitality is anywhere a guest can be, and something that we're working on right now is in healthcare. When you're at a hospital, you're really a guest at that stay, and one of the largest problems you have that in a hospital environment is being able to rest and sleep and heal. And so being able to do things like from that guest app or that button in the room to request, I want to sleep for the next 2 hours. And of course the nurse gets that request, make sure that's okay for anything, upcoming, whatnot, and being able to do things like that. So for us, we're looking at the guests from different aspects. Healthcare is one of them. And then, moving into the multifamily space, tenants our renters are guests as well. There's more and more things that need to be done for those people. It's all been developed in the hotel environment, and it's really moving into these other areas where people stay and sleep.
Awesome. One thing I want to ask about, because we are talking about data that may involve monitoring how people are using a space, is compliance with things like GDPR.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts on that?
it's good. So what we do is we have an outside consultant that we work with, which is important because you can go and do GPDR requirements and look at what's all done and make it a manual process. The only problem with that is as tests and things change and requirements change, you have to be constantly on top of it. So we partner with a very large software company that is constantly analyzing all of our systems. I mean, literally from our software source code, the way it's stored, the way our employees, all the encryption on their computers and all of that. And so the cool thing by using these services and outsourcing it is that one, it's constantly testing it. Two, you can do multiple areas of compliance. So GPDR is just one. There's also SOC 2 Type 2 is big for our industry, ISO 27001. And a lot of times these things blend together. So if you check a box in one area, you can check a box in a couple others. And so by using these consultants and vendors, not only are we able to ensure the compliance with these different organizations, but we can also audit against it as well. So they help doing yearly or quarterly audits on that data. So not only are we saying that we have things, we can actually prove it.
So yeah, where I was going with this whole idea of data is that every hotel or travel companies looking at how they're streaming data to then put it against some form of algorithm to refine their business and either for personalization or analytics. Where's it going? How does Bodhi's data fit into the larger picture of analytics and other algorithmic business models?
Yeah, and for years now, people wanted to be able to have preferences. Right now, there's really no in all the different PMSs. There's really no structured way to store these things. Everyone does it a little bit different, which makes it really really challenging. But what we do is one, we don't store personal identifiable information for the guests on Bodhi. We have unique IDs back to the PMS. So all the data that we are storing is not able to be traced back to you. The hotels would love it, so you can start anticipating things. We will get there because what we can start doing is comparing the guest profile to what we have stored and making a good assumption that it is actually them. But it's going to take some time. Again, like I said, the way the data structures are done right now aren't that great. For us, we're using the data more for building the next generation, like all of our AI and dashboards and things.
Awesome. And I mentioned this earlier about energy management and sensors, but sustainability it's a huge issue going forward. And every hotel is concerned about it. And I see it now in areas like group RFPs. They want to know about what your energy standards are and how you're being more sustainable. Where does could you just unpack a little bit more about how Bodhi helps hotels meet sustainability goals and saves energy?
Yeah, obviously we have all the data coming in. So the more sensors, the more devices, the more data that we have. Whether it's water flow utilization, energy utilization, all those that we have. If a door windows left open, humidity levels, we have all of that stuff coming in. What we do with it is the next part of it. So we've had a lot of requests to kind of gamify the data. So as a guest in a hotel, being able to say, "Oh, good job. You only used this many gallons of water today. You think you could do better tomorrow? And we have an incentive for you if you did." Um, you know, Another part that we're using, this is not really sustainability, but it kind of is a lot of times you'll leave a hotel at 4 or 5 in the morning and never check out, and that room sits there unoccupied, and they can't flip that room until 1 o'clock, and that's not good for the business side of things. And so what we're able to do is, since we're tied in with the PMS, we know when that checkout is supposed to happen, and we can look at things like when the last time a light switch got touched. Right. So if we know that the bathroom light turned on at 4:30 in the morning, and then at 5:15 the door opened and closed to the entrance, and that, we can send a text to the guest. This goes back to the kind of the gamifying part of it. Text to the guest and say, "Hey, did you check out already, or did you leave? And if you did, that's great. We'll give you a 10% credit or something like that." And that's been something we've been getting requests for more and more the past really 6 months.
Wow, that's a very interesting use case, and until you mentioned the text that you would send, my question was gonna be about, false positives, about, those edge cases where somebody, is just going to the gym and then they come back and their room's being cleaned and they're like
No,
they're in their gym gear, right?
right.
So,
No, we double check. It's like everything we do. We do everything is we don't assume much.
yeah, but, that's a very interesting use case that demonstrates the whole in terms of more efficient processes, whether it's energy controls as well as how that could then tie into the ops platform like a Hot Sauce or Alice, where you then are, dynamically rearranging, staff schedules for cleaning rooms. So it's a great use case. Do you have any other ones that are like that? Really the small to demonstrate the whole?
I mean, the other part of it is, since we have all this data coming in, we can do, sub meter billing, and that gets important. We have that one property of ours in the middle of the Bahamas on a remote island. They have to store water. There's things that, even though it's super high end, they still have to, calculate and see what is required. And so by being able to sub meter, we're able to not only, see what the guest is using, but in some applications be able to bill them for that as well. When you start getting billed for things, you start looking at it a little bit differently. You're not just paying the room rate now; you're actually paying for utilization.
Wow, that's a really cool one. Um, Another, one, and when we did our research here prior to coming on, we talked about the Norman's Cay development because you mentioned Bahamas, with Fort Partners. So could you walk us through that specific project and how you're involved?
Yeah, and that project is a really good example of how far Bodhi can do, or can go. So, Norman's is a remote island, like I said, in the Bahamas. The actual ownership group owns many Four Seasons properties, and they started this one as their own branded property. But they come from a very high set bar from what they've established with their Four Seasons properties. The problem is that you can't just have someone arrive in 5 minutes to solve a problem, right? It's a a couple hundred acre island, but it's not symmetric geography. It's an island. So to get from, it might only be 2 miles, but it could take an hour to get there, right? That's the perfect use case for Bodhi. So we're integrated into every aspect of that property. The door locks, there's a lot of different villas there, all the smart tech in those villas between not only all the same stuff, the lighting control systems, HVAC, and all of that, but we have other things too, like water leak sensors, because there's water heaters stored in very compact areas, and humidity is a big thing, obviously in the Caribbean. Being able to manage that, and other things too, just like it's the middle of nowhere. If a door is left open more than, say, I don't know, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you might want someone to know about that, to go check it. And we also do things, like monitor, battery levels in different devices like those door sensors. We're able to provide that staff, not only the alerts and intelligence of what's going on, but we're also able to give them, time to plan, because again, it takes time to get parts to replace things in the middle of nowhere. So it's nice to be able to see a forecast and trend of how things uh, are happening. And then, at that property, we're really taking it to the next level. So they have a private airport, and we are integrated with the Wi-Fi system for the entire property. So this is something that's coming, but when the guest lands and the Wi-Fi sees that person's device that it knows, we're able to say, "Welcome back to the island. Here's that link to open your door, control your stay, and do everything you want to do while you're here. No app to install, nothing to fumble with. We're being ahead of the game when that guest gets there. Imagine walking into a hotel instead of having to go to check in or do something on the app yourself to go mobile check in. We're sending you that text. We're doing it. We notice that you're there, and we're providing that experience.
Wow, yeah, the geo fencing, I guess, of the whole experience. So that is ground up involvement and property wide. A lot of hotels are already built. So we're talking about conversions and potentially breaking down walls to install new wires going different places. How do you help hotels in that regard with guiding them through a conversion or a renovation to get them up to speed with the smart tech while also keeping costs where they need to be?
So, couple answers to that. The one I want to really talk about is we had a very high end property in New York that just reopened, and they were facing the aspect of having to. They had some smart tech in the rooms, but it was no longer supported, and they were looking at having to spend millions of dollars in hardware and time to rip these systems out and replace them. But we were able to go in there with our software and breathe the life back into these systems and get them up and running so that hotel could open. And that way, the ownership can now stage their capital expenses of $4 or $5 million over the next few years to upgrade these rooms as they need, and not have to take all these things out of service. So so Bodhi right there, providing a tremendous value just on the software side. Again, that's an example where there's already some smart tech installed in the hotel. Retrofits for us are, by the way, are huge. So coming into a hotel where they're doing a renovation, depending how they're doing their renovation, but they are required, to come up to local code, right? And that means that they need to, most places, comply with, if the guest is not in the room for 45 minutes, the lights need to turn off, the AC needs to roll back. All these things have to happen. And for the property, they're trying to, attain that with spending the least amount of money possible. So we're able to go to them and say, hey, look, you can go and use this product line of these, in-wall products that you don't have to rewire the room. You can put these smart dimmers in from a very high leading manufacturer that you can actually go buy at Home Depot. And for, hundreds of dollars, less than $1,000 a guest room, not only can you comply with all the code requirements, but by utilizing Bodhi, we can also provide that guest experience. So the guest app being able to have all these different controls that the guests can use. You're not having to go and invest five, six, seven, eight, $10,000 into a room. You're able to do it with, you know, very simple hardware, and then pairing it with the Bodhi software to make it all work.
Yeah, and what I like is that just the dimmer switch example, that can be more impactful from the guest perspective than a lot of the more expensive finishing materials that you may want to use to upgrade a room. Particularly, you're talking New York, building luxury union labor, that can be quite expensive when you're talking about an actual renovation instead of just going and swapping in wired in units.
Yep. You can get the scope cut down to just, different few subcontractors. It makes it way easier.
Wow, that's awesome. So another partnership I want to discuss is with Amazon Alexa, and I guess that's Amazon Alexa Smart Properties. What exactly is this product that Amazon is launching, and how do you tie in with it?
It's a relatively new collaboration, but honestly, we've been working with the Amazon Alexa team. They've kind of renamed it over the years, but we've been working with their team as they've navigated that landscape in I call it non-home owners occupied space, meaning where you can't just put an Alexa in, connect a user profile to it that connects back to their Amazon account. It needs to actually be privacy driven and non-linking to a person in particular. And so that relationship with them has been great. Bodhi acts really as the bridge or the glue for the Alexa voice service to be able to control things like lighting and HVAC, television, shades. Really without Alexa having to know anything about the interface or the protocol. So Amazon doesn't have to do all these integrations. There's that word again, integrations, all these different hardware manufacturers. Bodhi's already done it. So we get that request. So you go and say to Alexa, turn the lights on. That Alexa gets Amazon gets the request. Amazon sends it to Bodhi. We know what room it's coming from because there's a unique identifier to that Alexa device, but there's no personal data. And depending on what's installed in the room, it could be a Lutron light or a Crestron light or a Rayco or someone. We tell that light to turn on, and it all happens within 200 milliseconds. It's near instantly fast. So, we're providing a tremendous service to Amazon there, with, not having to have them have to integrate to all these different devices. And the Alexa itself does not have to do any communications locally. It just sends that request to Bodhi, and we handle it from there.
Awesome. So yeah, this really is the smart room. We have voice to integrated partner to room controls to personalized fulfillment of whatever the room setup needs to be. What's on the horizon for the next 2 to 5 years?
Ooh. Obviously AI, everyone's all
Yep.
about AI. And, going back to the data, I'm sure you can imagine all the data that we've collected over the years. And really, more importantly, the data is on the operational parameters of equipment in the rooms, the big one being HVAC. For us, we have a dashboard, like everybody else has a dashboard. Although ours looks, way more sexy and can drill down into a breadcrumb on the floor, and also a normal person can operate it. But we always tell people, at trade shows and in person that, if we do our job right, you don't need to live on another dashboard looking at things. We're bringing information to you when it's actually needed, and that's exactly where we're positioning our AI. So we have a multi-tiered approach to it. First, we started off with all the generative AI, meaning being able to uh, send a text to you or a message to you and say there's a problem and from the data that it's looking at. And from the other aspect is being able to have a conversation with your property. So through our dashboard, being able to go in there and asking the property, hey, how many check-ins did this room have uh, in the past 30 days? And without having to go to the PMS and do all these data reports, we have that answer within a second. Or we can say, what's the average uh, runtime of cooling in this space? Because we've heard some complaints, or maybe Bodhi has told us that it's not cooling as effectively. So really, the GPT approach is that conversation. Starting a conversation with your property, and then that same aspect is being rolled out into our guest app. Again, going back to those kind of texts where we can actually say to the guest, "Hey, how's your stay going? Is your room comfortable? How's the temperature?" And if the guest says, "It's great, but my room is kind of warm," not only can we go and set the temperature back and try to correct that issue, but we can start going and looking at data and also notifying the property that, hey, this guest has this issue. But right off the bat, we can do something without having to involve a member of staff of the property, because they are taxed really high right now on trying to find people to work in these areas. So um, you know, another challenge that we've given ourselves on the AI side is that our product is global. It's really easy to go throw in and tie to an Amazon AI agent or a Microsoft something or OpenAI. But for us, even though we're cloud based, we're portable, meaning that we can run in private clouds within government restrictions that don't allow a connection to maybe Microsoft or AWS. So we have to do this data processing internally. So our next thing that we'll be doing is, I call it Special Agent Bodhi. It's really our machine learning aspect, but again, to put some simple terms to it, it's that special agent living behind the cloud of data and watching things as the data comes in and comes out, and being able to make predictions based on what it's seeing. And then Special Agent Bodhi can then utilize Bodhi GPT to send those messages in a real simple way, saying, "Hey, Adam, I noticed that this room is not cooling as effectively as everywhere else. And here's a couple of steps how to fix it. If that doesn't help, come back and talk to me and I'll try to help you some more."
Yeah, that's really cool. The whole idea of machine learning based on what I imagine now is millions of data points. Do you have that in beta?
Yeah, we actually showed off the GPT function at ISE in Europe, in Barcelona, back in January. So
Cool.
that's out at High Tech this year. Will be not to, but High Tech this year will be showing off all aspects of the AI rollout.
Wicked. Yeah, for everyone listening, ISC, Integrated Systems Exhibition, big show, exhibition. I think that's what it stands
Or
for, right?
Integration Systems Europe. Integration Systems.
Europe, Europe. Okay, yeah, yeah. But it is an exhibition, so
Yes, I think they had.
I get a consolation prize there.
Yes, yes. I think they had 60, 70. It's the largest. I mean, they had 60,
Yeah,
70,000 attendees. So
awesome. Brendan, any other points to close out our conversation?
Yeah, will predictive, you know, maintenance, I suppose, as you said, on property, staff are stretched. With all the data points that you're collecting now, is Bodhi able to sort of, send out a warning to the property that, we've had this type of fault in this room? Obviously, something needs to be done before it actually breaks.
yeah, and that all comes from the amount of data that you have, and not having to assume as much. So the more data you have, the better you can do with that. And the number one thing there, I always go back to HVAC, but obviously we work with a variety of sensors and manufacturers, but we also manufacture a couple things. We don't really mention that much because we're a software company, but we have manufactured a couple things out of a need. And one of those devices is actually a little box that goes into the supply air duct of a HVAC unit. And it also connects down to a little float switch in a drip pan. So it does two things. One, we're watching the supply air, so we're able to actually tell the property proactively that yes, this room is still cooling or heating. The guests might not notice that there's a problem, but there is a problem, and in the next few days, you need to get this unit serviced.
Yeah.
And then also by tying with the condensation area there too, if there is some sort of a drip happening, we're able to then take that information and let them know as well. And it's 100% agnostic to the manufacturer of HVAC. So you could actually have 4 different brands of air conditioning systems in your property. We put our little box in, and it brings back these data points that are extremely useful for the property.
Wow.
Yeah, it's getting yeah. Predictive maintenance, yeah, is the
Yeah, it truly is. It is. Everyone uses that term a lot, but this really is predictive maintenance.
Yep. That's what we need. Definitely. Just also obviously on reporting, it's a big one here in the Australian market. Mandatory sustainability reporting is just being introduced for larger organisations. You mentioned obviously, can you get to the granular level of consumption per room?
Yep, we can. So we actually have. There's a lot of countries now that are requiring sometimes up to every 5 minutes of data points of consumption. So we do it 2 different ways. One way that is super simple is that since we're talking to say the lights in the room, when that room is being designed, they have the wattage of the lights. We go ahead and plug that wattage in Bodhi to that light switch,
Yep.
and since we know where that maybe it was dimmed to 50% or 100% or different scenes in the room, how the scenes have been actuating, we then calculate. We also type in the cost per kilowatt, and then we calculate. It's really simple math to figure out the usage of these areas. And if you want to get into actual data, we can integrate with CT clamps, those clamps that go on and measure current flowing. But with Bodhi, we can calculate it. We can even look at HVAC and say, you know what, okay, an air conditioning unit that uses a heating element draws a certain amount of kilowatts. Well, we know how long that heating element was on for. We know what it was drawing, so we can calculate that. So literally from our dashboard, you can go and hit energy report at the various high level. And that's one big thing that's different with Bodhi than everybody else and sets us apart, is that we talk to the entire property. So you could have the branded residences on the top floor, the hotel rooms here, and the common area spaces here. When I hit that energy report, I get all of that and built into it. I can drill down into an individual room and see what makes up the consumption for the entire property.
You mentioned gamifying that, Will. Have you got clients that have done that yet? That actually present that data to the guests and give them a thumbs up because they're doing a good job?
We're starting to. It's relatively new, yes, but you'll be seeing that much more this year. Yes.
Interesting. It'd be interesting to see from a guest point of view if they like it or don't like
Well, I
it.
mean, what we started off first was with that checkout. Asking you, "Hey, did you check out yet?" That was really because that's usable across the board.
Yeah.
Just knowing that door open and close and that aux sensor or those light switches were touched.
Yep. Fantastic.
Will, this has been fantastic to learn about the future of access controls, in-room management, predictive maintenance. Are there any other closing thoughts you might have?
I mean, from a business point of view, um, you can have the best technology out there, does things that no one's ever considered. However, if you start with the technology first, which we always try that, going back to acronyms and things, if you start with technology first, you're on the wrong foot. You have to start with the customer experience first and then work backwards to the technology. And when you do that, it's the best way to start is with that customer experience first.
Yeah, and that is a true timeless lesson. Will, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a very powerful 40 minutes.
No, thanks, Adam. Thanks, Brendan. Nice seeing you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.